Well, they're not conflated together, but they're similar in the sense that we've always analysed China as we used to Russia in one of three ways. Are they a status quo power? Are they a defensive power? Or are they an expansionist power? We know the answer in Russia. And I think China's also shown its hand a bit too early. The real founder of modern China is not Mao Zedong, but in terms of how they've been going the last 30 years, it's Deng Xiaoping. And they've shown their hand in terms of going against three of his fundamental principles: conceal your capabilities and avoid the limelight. They've not done that by their extreme, disproportionate and escalatory set of measures to Pelosi's visit. Be good at keeping a low profile. They've not been doing that, and they haven't secured their own position. Now, I don't think that means we're anywhere near war. And of course, the visit of Pelosi is not a casus belli, that which causes or justifies war. Neither do they have the capability to invade Taiwan at the moment. But there is a mutual dependency. That is, although they've called out the G7 ambassadors, for example, in saying that those military measures were disproportionate, it is the fact that £1 trillion worth of Chinese exports go to 5 of the G7 countries, and China cannot afford for that income stream to be broken or shut off. So there is this mutual dependency, and we really expected China to probably follow Sun Tzu in terms of their Belt and Road initiative, the way they're hoovering up both resources around the world to fuel and food is which is what they need. So the Supreme Act is to subdue the enemy without fighting. That's what we thought the Russians would do. Now that they've shown their hand, we can push back against that if we need to.
I find it really interesting, something you just said there, because often when we think about any conflict or sort of tension with China, we think about the downsides for the British economy in terms of what we would lose from those Chinese exports. But actually, you've said there that China would be equally worried about their loss of income.
Well, that's right. And this is potentially one of the pushbacks against globalization following COVID, when we saw the fragility of supply chain. So that needs to be looked at a strategic level as well as from the Chinese perspective. But all this was really teed up for me by what came out in the integrated review in 2021. It did state about the rising power of China and the need to push back against them. But China is very, very clear. Economic power is political power, and that's the way they will go to try and disrupt the sort of the international way of doing business at the moment, and to become primus inter pares. They would like to see the yuan, the Chinese currency, taking over from the dollar as the central currency, and all that would go with that in terms of the influence and leverage that would give you in a global economy, of which they would run in both a digitally authoritarian way and in a humanly authoritarian way, as we've seen in the way that they treat the Uyghurs. And their pretty frightening call yesterday that the Taiwanese would need to be re-educated in the event of any reunification on Chinese terms.
Well, we've, of course, going to have a new Prime Minister in a few weeks' time, and both candidates seem to be relatively kind of hawkish when it comes to China. Do you think that's the right approach from Britain? Do you think we need to be tougher and demonstrate that we're tougher?
Well, I think you need a solidarity between all Western allies, the EU, to make sure that those who value democracy and freedom do push back against these authoritarian states. And as I said, to my mind, they've revealed their hand. And there is a way of going back to this because, China does need to do business in the international market. But we know what they're like now. The framework is there for us to deal with them. And we do need to push back if we want to maintain the international system post-World War II as it's been for the last 70 years and is being disrupted first by Russia and potentially in the future by China.